What is up and welcome back, guys. It is finally time to mount the splitter on Project Daily. So what we're first going to be doing is we're going to be placing the splitter exactly where we want it. And this is in relationship to the chassis rather than the front bumper. As I said, this is a functional splitter, and also that means it has to be chassis mounted, because if it's bumper mounted, it's just going to fall right off and tear off your bumper. So what we're doing, as I said, is relationship to the chassis and where we're mounting it on that rather than the bumper. There's not going to be a single point of mounting on the bumper, and that is because, well, it's no point to be mounted on a bumper. So first we're going to figure it out, and then we're going to hot glue the splitter itself to actually the two jack stands holding it up so there it doesn't move. And then what we'll do is take off the bumper and look at what our mounting positions are. And then I think we'll be able to put the bumper back on and figure out what we're going to do with the custom built splitter rods. So these actually go right here. As I said before, I didn't think I was going to be able to mount them, but I think the bumper beam actually comes up much farther in these corners, and there's not very much foam, so we can actually mount it there where I thought there's foam up front and there's no mounting spot. So the first step, as I said, is going to be making sure that it's in the perfect position, so I'll be right back. There we go, it is all measured up. It's as close as I think it's going to get. There's some funny measurements here and there just because the way the lip is actually. The lip's our main issue, and it doesn't make sense because it should all line up, right? Well, if we look over here, the lip right here is actually sticking farther out than the bumper, right? So this is actually a little bit before the bumper. Then if we go to the other side right here, the lip is way brought back in, so it looks like it's over here. So what I was doing before is lining it up here. We don't want that. What we do is we were lining it up with the bumper itself and also the side shot. So if we look, it lines up with the bumper here, and it lines up with the bumper here. And once I did that, actually both sides were even closer, so they're pretty much 4 inches all the way, which is perfect and the way I wanted it. One thing I'd like to address before we take off the bumper is I was talking about air cooling my brakes, how the air was going to get to the brakes, because we have some worries about the oil pan. So I will be monitoring the temperature once we start testing this out, but I think we should be fine. Lots of people have had the exact same thing and it ran perfectly fine. But the brakes were my big issue, because when you're autocrossing and tracking it, it tends to eat up your brakes and heat them all up. Well, if we look down here, you can actually see the tires. That's because the little piece of plastic that goes right here usually, that is for the fender liners, it actually sits below. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it up so it hits the bumper, and then our air flows right through here and right into the brakes. So we just are going to be repurposing essentially the old fender liners to make like pretty much brake ducting. And eventually I will probably end up doing some kind of brake ducting, but right now this is a perfect solution for it, as it flows right through here and right into the brakes. I didn't actually notice that till today, and it should work perfectly. So now that we got the lip perfectly positioned on Project Daily, we're not actually going to want it to move at all, but we have to take off the bumper, and the bumper and the lip are being pressed together right now. So my solution for that was I actually ended up hot gluing the jack stands to the splitter itself. So now that I take off the bumper, this is going to stay exactly where it is because it's hot glued on both of the jack stands, and they're enough mass that they're not going to move, and hot glue is easy enough to take off. You actually can just like pry it off. So as I said, next thing is taking off the bumper. Now that all the clips are off, it's time to take off the bumper. Don't know if that's going to go well. And there we go, the bumper is off. It caught on something on this side, I'm not sure what. It was honestly probably this guy right here, but it came off, and if we look at our hot glue, it didn't move at all, so that means that our splitter is in the exact same spot. Also, I can verify with the wheels and make sure they're both in line, which they are. Here's a first look at the splitter and where it actually goes. So if we take a look, it actually goes all the way down back to the rear of the front subframe. We interrupt this broadcast for some great Alberta weather right now we're having. It's just starting to rain, and I thought it was like a tornado out there. Look at those trees. So yeah, this is what it's been pretty much all week. Hopefully we get something. It was actually kind of nice for about an hour today, and then this is what happened. So yeah, hopefully we can get Project Daily back out on the road a bit before we have to winter store it. So the next process here is to figure out how to mount this to the subframe itself. So I don't really have a solid plan for mounting this right now. I kind of just following the guide, and whatever the guide said I did, but that was on an Evo actually, what they were doing, so a little bit different car. Anyways, so what I'm looking at right now is we got some really good mounting spots actually. So this hole right here in the front subframe, there's a hole on both sides, and there's a piece that goes right down here. So this is probably our first mounting spot right here, where I can build some bracketing that probably goes across. So I'm gonna figure out what I can do to strap this on. What I'm gonna probably end up using is some of this flat steel and some of this corner steel to build some brackets to hold them on. Looking around, I think I've figured out a plan. So we have this reinforced bar here. This is gonna run across the whole thing and actually run right under this subframe. That's gonna provide the support for the whole thing. I'm gonna put a bolt and nut just up every probably 6 inches so that it holds it nice and flat. Then what we're going to take is some of this guy. I already bent a corner on it. We're going to put it on right here and then run it right down to there. That way this whole piece is mounted up and then it will hold it down. And then next we're probably going to work our way down. So then the first step is to be mounting this guy right here, or mounting it up on each side so we have some support. So what I'm going to do, figure out my measurements here and here, and then make sure they're equal on that side. I only had to move it once, and it's actually pretty squared up right now. I measured it from the back, the sides, and the front, and it's pretty darn squared up. So now we're going to end up putting the first 2 bolts in. So what I'm going to do is put one at this end, and put one at this end. And just like that, we have our first piece mounted. I actually threaded the bolts through the plastic because I got the perfect diameter drill bit, and it actually is holding on. So I marked off, there's 3 other bolt holes on here, one here, one here, one here, and those are also going to have bolt holes so it holds it all together. So now that we have our, actually this is pretty much our main brace, now we're going to figure out how to mount the main brace up to here. So what I'm looking at is these pieces right here are probably our best bet because it is solid on the subframe. What I'm thinking is taking a drill, drilling right through these pieces right here, and that way this will be mounted here very solid. And there we go, we have a mark. They're kind of hard to see, but there's one right there, and then I have the exact same one on this spot. So all it is just a snap, and we got the holes drilled. So I got a hole right here that lines up with the one up there, and then same on that side. So next is making the brackets that go from here down to here to hold it. So it looks like this is where we're going to have to leave it for tonight because I didn't realize what time it was till I looked at my phone, and I don't have time to finish it up. I actually wanted to get the whole thing mounted so we could just drill the holes and put it on tomorrow, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen because of the time. Anyways, we did make some good progress here, so we figured out how we're going to mount at least the front part, and I think I have an idea of what I want to do for the rest of the mounting down back there. That looks like it's gonna be it for today, so until tomorrow, peace out and stay humble.